We begin the August 14 turn and the 7 a.m. phase. We'll keep the RAF on the ground at Hornchurch for this phase. And the Germans are early this morning, sending a smaller 4-plane raid. We roll for the raid location and for the reported altitude of the raid, which is 10,000 feet. The raid gets a free move due to radar damage, and a roll of 6 sends the raid north of Manston. The RAF will continue standing by at Hornchurch. The raid is in a good position to go after the convoy, but a roll of 6 sends the raid even further north. This move gives the RAF an advantage, as the raid will only be able to attack 2 possible targets, the sector airfields of Debden or North Weald. With the raid having a lot of English country to fly over before reaching these targets, and flying at a relatively low altitude, both RAF pilots will now scramble. We shift the fatigue levels up 1 space and move the altitude marker to ground level. Control switches back to the Germans, and the raid finally makes landfall near the mouth of the River Blackwater. The RAF climbs the maximum 2 levels to 10,000 feet and moves toward the raid in an attempt to flank it from out of the sun as it passes by. The Germans make their move, and a roll of 6 would normally cause the raid to move in this direction. However, the raid is at the limits of the map, so we'll plot a course following the edges instead. There is now no doubt that the raid will be bombing Debden Airfield. The RAF will be just short of intercepting the raid at this time, so the raid will be able to bomb the airfield before we can intercept. The RAF climb to 15,000 feet and fly behind the raid path, up sun, and prime to attack. We'll forego the German raid's movement check, as any number rolled on the die will automatically send the raid to Debden. The raid is revealed, and it's heavily escorted by 3 fighters with only 1 medium bomber. We roll for the true altitude, and a roll of 9 keeps all raiders at their current altitude. Debden only has a light AA icon present, so cannot disrupt the higher flying raid. The lone DO-17 causes 1 point of damage. The damage to the airfield gives the Germans 2 victory points, for a total of 8. The RAF, at the perfect altitude and up sun from the raid, move into position and attack from out of the sun. Stone and Holmwood go after the 2 109s, as they are the more serious threat. We roll for Holmwood's performance check, and the Hurricane manages to best the 109. With a +2 added for the out of the sun attack, Holmwood finishes with a 9, while the 109 finishes with a 7. Holmwood is allowed 2 bursts, which he fires at the 109, and scores 3 out of 4 hits. His shots strike the engine and cockpit area, killing the pilot and downing the 109. We mark off 2 bursts for Holmwood and credit him with another kill. We place the fighter in the destroyed box, and the RAF gain another victory point. Stone goes after his 109, and we roll for performance. But the German gives Stone the slip on a roll of 4. Even with the out of the sun bonus, the Spitfire and 109 both wind up with a total of 10, and Stone fails to get into firing position. Now the German fighters make their choices to which RAF fighter they will attack, and both fighters decide to go after the Hurricane. This leaves the Spitfire unengaged, so we will add a +1 to the performance rolls for the Hurricane. The 109 rolls first for performance, and Holmwood performs some impressive evasive action. The final results are 12 for the Hurricane and 7 for the 109. The German fails the check, so cannot fire. We roll for the 110's performance next, and Holmwood manages to escape the guns of the German heavy fighter. The final results are 9 for the Hurricane and 6 for the 110. We roll for the continuation of combat, and a roll of 4 moves combat into the second round. But the RAF have had enough, not willing to press their incredible luck any further. Our 2 pilots break off and head back to Hornchurch, and the remaining German raid heads back to France. We begin the 10 a.m. phase. The RAF will once again stand down at Hornchurch for the time being, and the Germans also take a breather as a no raid is drawn. We shift to the 2 p.m. phase. The RAF will move to the satellite field at Gravesend, expecting another German raid very soon. And they are proving correct as the Germans mount another 4-plane raid. We roll for the raid placement and the reported altitude, which is 5,000 feet, a low-level strike that could cause serious damage to the target of this raid. The Germans get a free movement due to the radar damage, and the raid moves south of the eligible coastal targets and appears to be making its way further inland. Rye radar is in the potential path of the raid, but the target is still damaged, so the Germans will ignore it. The RAF sense another golden opportunity. With the raid flying so low and heading further inland, it puts them well within striking range of this smaller raid. The potential to deal a serious blow to this raid is too great to ignore, so the RAF scramble. We move the fatigue levels for both pilots up 1 space and the altitude markers to ground level. The Germans take their move and fly over the damaged radar site as they proceed further inland. The RAF use 2 movement points to climb to Angels 10 and move south to await the raid's next move. The Germans move further inland and into the range of the waiting RAF fighters. Homewood will climb to Angels 15 to spoil any potential top cover, while Stone will remain at Angels 10. And the RAF maneuver to jump the raid from out of the sun. The raid is revealed and is lightly escorted with a single 109, who happens to be an ace, with 3 bombers in tow. We roll for the true altitude, and a 6 keeps the raid at its current level, with even ID fighters moved to top cover. Unfortunately, the 109 has an odd number, so will remain at 5,000 feet. Homewood is now flying too high and is out of position for an intercept, so he must immediately pancake, which he does at Hornchurch. It's now all up to Stone, who will go after the ace 109 pilot first. We roll for performance, and the 109 ace maneuvers hard against Stone's attack. The results are 12 for the Spitfire and 13 for the 109, but we add +2 to Stone's out-of-the-sun attack, which gives the Spitfire the slightest edge of 14. Stone is allowed 1 burst at the 109, and only a single hit is scored. Only the frame is struck, which knocks a point off of the 109's performance. The Germans take their turn. The opposing fighters are now evenly matched in performance, and we roll for the advantage. The 109 ekes out a slight performance edge against Stone, with 1 burst allowed. But the 109 pilot is more accurate, with 2 hits scored. And the ace pilot proves his skill as the accurate burst destroys the airframe. Stone has a chance to bail out, so we roll 1 die on the bailout table. And Stone manages to escape his doomed fighter. The destroyed Spitfire is placed in the destroyed box, and the Germans receive another victory point. Stone's chit is flipped to its bailout side, and the marker is placed in the hex where he was shot down. Stone will return during the night phase. With the RAF dealt with, the German raid continues on. and targets another London hex. With London having balloon barrages in place, the raid is forced to fly at 10,000 feet. Also, the heavy AA knocks off 1 point of damage, for a final total of 3 points. The Germans now have a total of 12 victory points. With this second London hex damaged, the London damage tracker is moved up once again. Now, we will have to add an extra raider to all future German raids until London's damage is reduced. The victorious Germans fly back to France. We begin the 5 p.m. phase. The humbled RAF decide to stand down at Hornchurch. We draw the remix counter, so all chits are placed back into the container, and we draw once again. Fortunately, the Germans have had enough today, and we move to the night phase. The RAF will use one of their 2 repair points to replace the destroyed Spitfire, and the other point to bring Rye radar back online once again. The Germans spend their 2 points to replace their 2 destroyed aircraft, and the Luftwaffe is back to full strength once again. Stone survived his bailout and spent the rest of the day making it back to base. He is once again ready to fly his replaced Spitfire, but due to his ordeal, he will not recover any fatigue tonight, and so remains at fatigue level 2. Holmwood, on the other hand, gets a good night's sleep and is now fully rested. With the radar site repaired, the Germans lose 1 victory point. The current VP totals are 11 for the Germans and 4 for the RAF. The RAF had great opportunities to do serious damage to the Germans today, but they couldn't quite deliver a decisive blow. But the RAF did have their good luck as well, escaping what could have been potentially game-ending attacks by German fighters. But with London burning, the Germans will now send larger raids into English skies. Though the RAF did rather poorly today, they do still live to fight another day. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk again soon.